Hello and welcome to the Genuine Learning blog. My name is Melisa Galasso, and today we're going to talk about a GASB proposal that came out last month that's going to impact some disclosure items. And this is really going to answer some questions that have been raised recently about how do these assets all fit together now that we've got lease assets and subscription assets. How does this work? And obviously GASB 34 didn't really contemplate some of these newer assets, and so we're going to address them here. So GASB has titled this Disclosure and Classification of Certain Capital Assets. They put this out in September. Comments are due January 5th of 2024. Can you imagine? We're almost there, guys. We are at the end of the year. Time is flying by. So currently GASB does require governments to provide detailed information about capital assets in the notes, and they use the term by major class of capital asset. But over the last bit of time, as I said, we've gotten GASB 87 and GASB 96, which have really added, and people have asked, do we put the SPIDA asset with our copiers in our buildings? Where do the lease assets go? How do we differentiate? And so GASB in the proposal would require capital assets held for sale, intangible assets, subscription assets from GASB 96, and lease assets from GASB 87 to be disclosed separately by major class. So now we would break out and say, okay, these are the types of leases we have. These are the types of subscription assets that we have broken out. Now, intangible assets that represent the right to use other underlying intangible assets are not required to be disclosed, with the exception of the explicit requirements around subscription assets, right? Because that's the right to software, which is an intangible asset. And so it would be the right to use someone else's intangible. In this scenario, that is in the scope because it's explicit. But if you have the right to use another intangible, those do not have to be included. You don't lump them in with the owned intangibles as we go through there. So that when we look at that intangible class, it should be the intangible assets that the entity owns. So how do I know if it's held for sale? A capital asset is classified as held for sale if they have already decided to sell it, and it is probable that the sale will be finalized within 1 year of the financial statement date. And again, they provide some details about how do you make the determination that it is probable that it will happen. So a nice and neat one, but it is honestly a question I get pretty frequently in class. And so when I teach SPIDA and I teach leases, a lot of times people do ask, and so this would provide an answer to those common questions. And so in terms of the proposed effective date, it is for fiscal years being after June 15 of 2025. So that would be calendar and fiscal 26. However, early adoption is encouraged, and I would expect a lot of people would take them up on this to provide a little bit better understanding in those disclosures. So we do expect this to go through pretty quickly. I don't think this is pretty controversial, but who knows? We'll have to see what comes out of this and if maybe there are other types of assets people feel need to be disclosed separately. So comments are due, again, January. So a good time if you are thinking about it during the holidays and you have a little bit of free time, you might want to give some feedback to the GASB. All right, so that's a wrap this week. It is a short standard, but I do think it will answer a lot of questions. I know it will answer a lot of the questions for my students, so grateful to have this new proposal out there. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and I hope to see you on a future blog. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.